All right, we're live with Wauconda for Wauconda. This is our second live meeting. This is the Wauconda Village Board meeting, and we're going to be watching the entire things unfold. Thanks.
Well, I need to know because my phone getting.
Let's go for large.
That's what I did probably see. Okay. That's fine.
Okay, then I'll go the rest of it.
I think when she asked, it'll be on me to get up and then.
Okay.
In the car. Mine's right up.
But we'll make sure to get Doug because we know he likes to be on camera. Should I talk to
Guys, attention. Guys, hold in yard. Guys, halt. Guys, cross the fire. Guys, close the clothes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very nice. Roll call, please. Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. In regards to public comment, I want to make a few comments or suggestions. I've always been an advocate of public comments and hearing others' opinions during the board meetings. And it's obviously every person's right to be heard. And our job, of course, is to work here with residents. So I do have a few notes that I'm going to be going through here, but I have to say, our last meeting was a bit disturbing, I guess, if you will. Public comments to me are supposed to be, a conversation, if that, questions, comments, whatever, to the board, directed to the board, and the board responding back. And I think lately, we've kind of gotten away from that a little bit. Some of the professionalism of what we're all here to do and for the good of the community. I think maybe it's time, we've gone back and forth on our agenda and where we would have public comments, how many we would allow, things like that. And I like that we have the two areas. I like that people can comment on the new areas as well as on the open comments in the beginning, but I think it's time that we have to put some guidelines in here, get back to basics. I think most of us here have been to other government meetings or agency meetings where you do sign in for the meeting for attendance. You also, they have separate reports. If you want to speak, that you sign in. And you have a comment line on there. A topic line. I think we need to do that. That should be given to the chair then to start the meeting, and the chair can call on those people to speak. I also think that due to some of the lengths of comments and back and forth on both ends, it's trying to keep everything more professional. That we probably should look at a time 3 to 5 minutes, and we go down to an hour. Last week I think was really long. So I think that is something that the board needs to look at. I think it's something we need to do in the best tradition of having the business here at the board meetings. I think comments need to be addressed to the board, not to the audience, and get to a point and we'll move forward. I think it's just something that we need to, it's my opinion, what we need to do. I agree.
I was not here at that last meeting, but I tend to not people know from my earlier remarks that we respect everyone's First Amendment rights. But I said it before, I'll say it again. These board meetings are meetings of the board held in public. They are not public forums. And the only way that we as a board, and I think, well, we as a board can conduct business in a business-like manner is to put some rules in place regarding public. I really think that has come to address that, and it'll be incumbent on not only the public, but on the chair, obviously, once those rules are put in place to make sure that they're applied consistently. So, I support everything that said.
I believe welcome public comment, but we have to keep in mind that this is a business meeting and it's not a trade, meeting. If the public has specific questions that aren't being answered or want to have a coffee with one of us, call us, make that appointment so that we can discuss those things. It probably would be more productive than speaking.
I'm curious, though, that tonight, I believe that comments you put on both sides will improve on that one taking the meeting. And I think this is simply to make it a little more formal, to get some of that out of it, to keep it on.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, so we already, in our current rules, allow 5 minutes and so forth. If we want to add the others, then I'd set the consensus of going to have 5 minutes on the agenda. That is consistent with pretty much every other governmental meeting I've seen. Whether it be another village or another board. We know we have some guidelines that we got from another village and with basically encompass your comments here with Administrator Maxon to drop everyone if we're in consensus. We'll start with that and then we'll bring it for vote next month.
Next week.
Yes, next meeting. Consensus?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so having said that then for public comment, we'll just stand, state your name. If you want to make comments, you have 2 minutes, 3 minutes rather. And so everyone can have their turn. Open public comment if it's on the agenda item. You can wait until after the work's done and then make a comment on your business. For anything that's not on the agenda, that's the first public comment section. So, having said that, if you would like to make public comment, raise your hand. Yes.
I really hate following that. Oh well. I hope I like to be very respectful of everybody, so I am asking though. I will not ask questions if you will answer my email. If I get answers, I can post them on important forums. So I will send my questions to you, and if you can answer them, that'd be great. I have one that was just answered by Doug, but typically I get 0 response. So if I can get a response, I'd be happy and I'll share on that about it. So I'm going to skip a couple today and put them with some emails to you directly about some things that have been coming up, and you can answer them every day. And then I'll reserve. I typically try to touch base with this. So 911, I'm just going to bring it up and put it out there. Doug did respond to me with an email I sent to you. I am not blaming Doug in any way, shape, or form. This is probably not going to go on until October, I would assume, because people are going to be on vacation from what I get from that student. And I want something to do as far as how we're, even for the mayor, how we're letting you continue, how we're letting this to continue. Would you, if you were in a business, would you allow this to continue for 6 months from the original presentation? Waiting and stuff would be stopping your first thing. I mean, you're probably going on. So I don't understand. It's very frustrating. It's like a black cloud over the town, and I just would like to be there. For what's the schedule? What are the trustees doing?
And again, for public comments, a comment, and get you answers written after the work we want to meet. As Justice Berkey alluded to, you can set up a meeting where we can
So
discuss.
nobody's going to answer anything on that one.
Yes.
We have parking.
We do have a working,
We can't have that shared.
Yeah.
That date is not shared. There's no scheduled date for the discussion of that.
Well, that's alternative, again, that's what Administrator Max and I put out last meeting, so once it's clear, then we'll make it. That can be part of the agenda.
Okay. We have a finance committee chaired by a trustee, considering that we don't have a finance, person.
We-
You do? Do they leave?
That is, Trustee Bardini is the chair of the Finance Committee. The time is expired. If you have another, if anyone else wants to make a public comment? Yes?
Project somewhere on the brand. I agree with having, kind of this put in place, but what are our rights? I brought this up at a communications meeting. What are our rights to have questions answered? And why are we always hearing, quote, we're moving forward, this is being worked on, and we're not getting questions answered? Maybe if you answer the questions, we would have less questions here, and maybe we would go a lot smoother. We feel frustrated because we don't get in. Let's talk about 911. Why can't somebody explain something? Something. Give us something. Instead of, sorry, we're working hard. What are our rights? What do we deserve to know? It's important information. Transparency.
I believe Administrator Max answered those questions last meeting.
No.
No.
And if we're going to have that kind of, we're not going to have quote banter, then I would expect that you guys sitting on the board would also respect that if you're asking questions and something inappropriate is being said, that you speak up. That would be my, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to do this, resolve people in regards to all the applications in the first place. Information outside of this, yeah, but look, outside of his own personal stuff, which doesn't go to your own personal stuff, we have a right to know. It's clear, it's clear that we are entitled to every piece of data everybody has on the continuous community, particularly right now, not anymore. That stuff is done, and we didn't have any problems. Let the people know something, otherwise they're not supposed to.
You have to understand, you were here last meeting, I know.
Yes, and I saw you said he was waiting on data.
That's right.
I emailed you on Friday asking what data, from whom. You're entitled to all of that.
So actually, that is not, you're not entitled to any information that's covered for personnel discussions until it's released. So, excuse me, sir, you must, sir, you must keep order. When I'm speaking, then you're not, and vice versa. So, because I am the chairman of the meeting, and that's how the meeting works, sir. So, right, so if I interrupt you, sir, then you must yield the floor. That's the way parliamentary procedure works. So, we have provided information, we'll continue to provide information. You have to understand, excuse me, sir, you cannot continually interrupt me when I'm speaking. You can have whatever views you want to have. Don't interrupt while another person is speaking. That's simple parliamentary speech. It's disruptive to the meeting, and that's not productive. So to answer what you asked was that this information has been made available. You have to understand government works very slowly. That's just the facts of the matter. Government works very slowly. And you have to understand that we do not have the answers yet.
Information available there to the public. We're entitled to everything. You have where the data is coming from and what they have from whom we're waiting on.
Mr. Ricky, you have to understand.
Information.
You cannot give someone data that you do not have.
You can tell us who you're waiting on. It's from. You can tell us what we were waiting on. We doesn't know everything outside anything personal with anybody that is employed by this village.
Is anybody in the board that has influence?
I'd like to have him because he's returning notice.
Section 7.1 of the Freedom of Information Act. 7.1 is very capable of looking there. It's under the exemption. And one of the exemptions specifically states that internal, like the paper, drafts, things which contain opinions on staff internally, if not mentioned specifically by the chairman of a meeting or the chairman of a committee, those are exempt. 7.1F. And I really employ it because it's a balance. It's a balance between while the municipality and staff is getting prepared, getting ready, and until they get policy overlays and direction, it's gathered. Once it's launched, it's most certainly public information. For instance, last year, when there was a presentation, there was a PowerPoint presentation, all of that information was most certainly public access. It was mentioned by the chair of the meeting, it was launched by the internal working document, 7.1F. Take a look at it. It's elaborate. It's a balance. It's not a complete yes or a complete no, but it's a balance.
Well, it's not complete yes or no, why are we reporting?
Well, for instance, internal working drafts, if they're brought to the full board for review or discussion, and those internal documents are mentioned by the chair of the meeting, it states that. They automatically then become a public document, even though it hadn't been mentioned by the chair of the meeting.
I'm not a lawyer.
Well, negotiations, draft and negotiations. You get a proposed agreement, your internal group has counter proposals, and it's going back and forth. That's not a public data. Especially waiting here. It just isn't here yet.
I've seen things that they could account for, especially in regards to positions like this, but
We haven't discussed it even further, but check 7
put that in a row for
Yes?
That's what we're doing today, right? A couple questions for you. The first is residents like to know if the duties and times have been moved from Lakeland to Federal Island as the place to feel.
I don't know. Does that happen to you too? No.
Also, what I asked on the top of the as well, enforcement, we blocked over elections to this tax. What's going on? I understand people are gathering data, however, the book says this is both 3 separate things under the, of what these numbers are going to come and go. So, I mean, on the next week, and there's nothing really to decide. So they've been posted 15, they've been posted 2nd. Everybody is that in mind, and it's there. If they were, I would like to see people going to the night and not have a job, and they don't know when.
Yes?
I won't take a bunch of your time, obviously, for everybody from water, about it, before, but we dug in on that. You're all your thoughts on that as well, too. My concern, I have a couple of different topics regarding 911 is on the topic. My biggest concern is the dispatch, but not only dispatch, losing more time, because I believe our vice tech district has to develop up in October, and a couple of other towns have it in 10 months. that is something that really needs to be done before we don't want to lose that department that we do have. They're going to start gas, we're going to have to have anybody go forward when it does, completely does come. That's what you guys really need to push forward for. The other stuff, this is not just about economics. This is about Lake North, it's about Holiday, it's about all the towns that are involved. And you can make them, it's making them look like that because they're waiting on us. So we really need to be both, and that's the one thing I can say about that. But I would like to say in the good news, I would like to thank you all for taking that matter very seriously. I want to take seriously. So on that positive note, I would like to thank you all for taking that very seriously. There's an issue of concern along with everything else that's going on, but I do want to thank you guys for that. So thanks very much. And I know that we have
Great. Approval of the agenda. Chair will entertain a motion to approve consideration of consent agenda. So moved.
Second.
Your roll call, please.
Trustee Knight?
Yes.
Trustee Carpini?
Yes.
Trustee Sparky?
Yes.
Trustee
Yes. Consent agenda is bills for payment.
Bills for payment from 8/13/14 to 8/26/14 totaling $222,513.42.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve item A. Originally, item A on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Knight?
Yes.
Trustee Carpini?
Yes.
Trustee Sparky?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the vote for the bid of the MFT tax lien.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you. You may recall earlier in the year that Lake County Municipal League invited the village to their property purchase program. Because of that, the village approved a intergovernmental agreement and another commitment to the Lake County Municipal League accepting and being part of the property purchase program for the tax lien. There was earlier in the year, that went out to bid. There were 4 bidders that bid on that project. The lowest bidder was Ben Davis Group. The village has used Ben Davis Group before. Ben Davis was a state contract has always done a good job on time and within budget. There's a total of 10 municipalities that have joined this cooperative effort, and that will be awarding this contract to Ben Davis are taking maintenance. So, and if approved, basically the streets that we would be looking at are the Meadowview subdivision, the Shadowwood subdivision, Hartsdale subdivision, and Liberty Lakes West. I believe that last year we focused detail efforts on the east side of Liberty Lakes, the west of that. So, what staff is seeking is motion to award the 2014 MSP tax lien program to Ben Davis Wilson for a month.
One question real quick is on the overall plan for pavement, is this incorporated into that, or will this be incorporated into that for paving? That's the thing.
It will be, yeah.
Sorry, trustee Burby and support.
Does this fall within the budget with this amount, $25,000? Does this fall within what you expected?
It did. Basically, what I did was we budgeted $25,000 for crack sealing, and based upon the unit price that came in, I adjusted quantities so that it came out to $25,000. The price that we did receive is very favorable, so we were able to actually do more than I anticipated. So for that $25,000, more than done.
And how did that price per pound compare with last year?
I believe last year's price was very close price. I little surprised about the price was and what he was involved in. It wasn't as high as the second lowest bidder, which was $1.48 per ton, and Ben paid $1.23 on $31.20. But I can verify that.
Okay, Chairman, get a motion to approve the award bid to Dan Stone Confection covering
Number.
Second.
and roll call please.
Trustee Williams?
Yes.
Trustee Harrison?
Yes.
Trustee Starkey?
Yes.
Trustee Black?
Yes. Okay, next item, request for the Wauconda Cruise Link Committee to amend the special event permit. You have that?
I do, thank you, Mayor. As you know, we've had 2 Wauconda cruise nights this year. We're scheduled for our 3rd year, September 16th. The cruise night committee, which includes Chief Ghost as well as Alex Price and Public Works, has met after each of these events to critical things through the process of how to hold that night. We try to identify ways to improve it and make pedestrian safety better. I think we've done a nice job of trying to come up with solutions there. So, this final event, we have a request from the committee that would like to amend the special event permit that would also close Maple Avenue from Route 176 to Bank Street. And I've been corrected that this should be closed at 4 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. The purpose for this is really to improve traffic flow, to provide a better display of cars, and also to improve pedestrian safety. So with that, answer any questions you might have.
Quick question on this is, because I know there was some consternation, I know there's growing pains for this event's done well. What are all the areas that are closed now? Is it Main Street, Maple, or proposed to be closed, Main Street, Maple, and the parking lot? That would be what stands, or no?
All of them areas, anywhere in Main Street, so the addition on Maple Street is really twofold. One is those as well as subject to fire. That's all office stuff on 76. Very
In your opinion, Chief, you think there's a better traffic flow? Comments from the board? Okay. Chair, let me declare your motion to approve item B under old business request for the Cruise Night Committee to amend the special event permit. Second. Roll call.
Trustee Henry?
Yes.
Trustee Starkey?
Yes.
Trustee Starkey?
Yes.
Trustee Black?
Yes. Okay, next is the approval for the modified list of village board meetings for display on the village hall, bulletin board, village day. So this is the,
It is. Back in May, we had a governance effectiveness session, and part of that discussion was a consolidation of meetings of 2 of them, and that basically accomplished the elimination of the pool meetings. The ordinance that we have on the books talks about regular village board meetings meeting on the first and the third Tuesdays of the month. That is not changed. So the meetings are letter required to be that long. But we did have a list of meetings that were posted online, which included the regular village board meeting, creative board, and a few other committees and divisions as well. So what we'd like to do is just get your approval to repost those meetings, to exclude the committee of the whole meetings, and have the rest of the attachments and those be posted on the website moving forward. Again, no changes to the code or the ordinances moving forward.
I had a question about committee meetings. We had discussed about having the regular committee meetings on a certain Tuesday of the month and figuring out that schedule. And I feel we discussed it, but we haven't simplified it. So is there any room to add more consolidation?
Yeah, I owe you recommendations on that, and I'm working through those with the mayor and with some other staff members. So we've got that in the
get our schedules together.
I'll tell you it's going to be in the Friday for
Chair, will give a motion to approve item Z for the modified village board meetings. So move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Knight?
Yes.
Trustee Griffin?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes.
Yes.
Did, by the way, give it all from the names that you missed it all. All right, under new business, item A, the action is for action, a resolution transferring ownership of St. Charles Homestead, which we already have on display at the township site. It's pretty straightforward. We just wanted to make sure that if we get on it, we Charles, we don't even know if we own it for sure, but we're going to transfer it back. Any comments? The channel says we're going to motion to approve item A for the transferring of the 18 homestead to the township society.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Knight?
Yes.
Trustee Griffin?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes.
Yes. Okay, item B, then discussion to introduce the proposal location and vendors for the installation of the new early warning system. I think we did this.
I do. As Mr. Beebe referenced earlier, several meetings ago, after a period of severe weather, it was brought to our attention that there was perhaps a service void up in the Liberty Lakes area on Tornado side. So after more research, we in fact did find that there is a service void up there. And on page 53 of the package, you see a map prepared by Deputy Chief Mike Wall from Fire Protection District, showing our existing sirens and where that specified coverage area is for each of those sirens. You can see the white circles up on the Liberty Lakes area. It's certainly not addressed by an existing siren, and that's obviously moving forward. So, also in our research, we found out that there was $15,000 on hand from a developer that had been deposited for that specific purpose. A new siren these days costs about $30,000 to purchase and installation. So as such, we added $15,000 in the budget to supplement the developer donations to get that siren purchased and installed. So on page 54, shows you where we're looking at locating the siren. What we're proposing is to put it at the elevated storage tank, the latter elevated storage tank location. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one is coverage. It provides adequate coverage of the entire area up to the north. Also, we have an existing power supply at that location, so we don't have any other potential for running power at this location. And also for security purposes. Security site for us. So we're proposing that we locate that site at the elevated storage tank, and the Deputy Chief Wall is on board with that as well. So with that discussion, we have contacted the vendor. We've gotten a quote for this. I have not included a quote in case you want to go out for bid for that, because I don't want to spill his price out for so that to show the price to be, so to speak. This is a vendor that we have used for maintenance and coordination on all of our emergency warning sirens. What we would like to ask is if you would be comfortable with waiving the bidding process and awarding that contract to
Communications
I'm
technology.
sorry, I want to do the papers here. Yes, Communications Technologies LLC. Again, they are maintaining and coordinating all of our emergency sirens. What we'd like to do is make sure that we continue that consistent coordinated effort on those maintenance issues, move that forward. So, looking for feedback from you. I don't know what your feelings are about waiving the bidding process. We think it's worthwhile to keep that within the same.
Quick question. The competitive, we get other prices just to see without a formal bidding process to check to see if it's competitive.
Yeah, we are getting 2 other quotes just to show where it falls into the general scheme of things as far as competitiveness. We will have that before we award that.
So if, for example, there was some big variance, big delta, then you could
raise a red flag and move forward.
Right.
Absolutely.
But this is obviously fits within what's prescribed by law for what has to go in. Also,
It's any level that says that you need to get it, but there's also provision that way for this. You know, the way it's done on level that most reason for raising.
You can also say in case of, under situation, that's not covered by a sign, that's not.
No.
No.
Level of safety is the policy that's supposed to be. If somebody had to spend $30,000 to leave trees that were, tornado was going in the street, that's one thing. So, here's something, I go to the trade, and then, this, we go to do a neighbor, and community club.
No, just discussion, just a discussion on how we want to move forward.
I like the plan, that way we see how this price compares. I think it's a good approach.
What about the location? Are there any issues with the location?
No, I think it makes sense.
The thing you didn't mention that it does matter is the aesthetics. It's already where there's a big industrial water.
I was going to point that out. Particularly with this, some opposition to putting in public backyards. To get a much aesthetics of the home, land, and the kinds of the so that is considered.
So, we have consensus and move forward with that and plan based on it. Okay, the next item also for discussion, item Z, staff recommendations to refer to the Public Works Committee, a comprehensive review of the village code on water and sewer rates, structures, billing cycles, consumer credits, penalties, and payment options. So this is all whether billing cycles, how many days you have to pay, we set 20, and I think Brad, you've been looking at people giving more time. Issues extensively on cover through this.
The mayor has to take a look at the comprehensive review of all that stuff, and basically, staff felt that the appropriate, where that's the appropriate to allow them a chance to provide recommendations to the board. However, when we also feel that amendments to the billing cycle and penalties always be justified based on feedback from residents and initial analysis that we can. Back when the ordinance was initially changed, we went from quarterly to monthly billing cycle. Basically, the current ordinance states that the bills will be rendered on or around the third or fourth every month. Residents of 14 days after that to pay. After the 14th day, penalties would be rendered. And then it also states that sometime after the 14th day, they have not paid, and the shut-off notice would be delivered. And then they have 3 days after that before the water is paid, bring their balance current before the water would be shut off. So typically that would be around 30 to 31 days. We felt that this was aggressive. Looking at other municipalities, they have bill rendered on the first. They had roughly 24 days to pay on the 24th, and then anywhere from 46 to 60 days before the shut-off was paid. So we felt that the majority of them were about 45, 46 days. So that's actually what we're practicing. It seems to be working out well. So we thought that that was something that we could just go ahead and implement right away. Another thing is when I was looking at another municipalities and what they charge for the lake season, most of them were right around the 10%. So we felt that we should justify as well. To, what motion are you Thanks. So, that being said, if I have consensus, I could, have Judy draft up the ordinance amendment, for approval for meeting, and obviously the rest of it we would discuss in the public works committee meeting. Speaking with trustee Longwell, with wanted me to find out if number 10 would work with me. Don't have to get back to me right now. But I'll tell you that. It would be at 5:30.
Just remember, we've got, the night before and the night after that. Here, you're gonna be remote meeting, which will be the time.
What we can. Essentially, tonight what I'm looking for is a consensus on the schedule and the.
I think you use a very appropriate word. I think fairness is a good word to use. And when you look at again this issue, I think fairness plays big in this. Going along with what you're suggesting is a fair way to approach this. Good idea. However, I do have one thing. We're going to refer. That's the penalty issue that has to be dealt with first. So we're in line with practice. Practices are being applied right now. But when we talk in the bigger sense of what works about rate structures and the like, I think one of the key things we have to remember, and I'd like to remind the audience, is water and sewer fund is what we call an enterprise. Basically, that means it's a self-supporting fund. Okay, your property tax dollars, sales tax dollars don't go into this fund. It's all supported by water and sewer rates. That being said, I know, Brad, you talked about looking at our sewage treatment infrastructure, sewer lines, the trickle tower, etc. I think any discussion of our water and sewer rate structures have to be discussed in context with what potential expenses we could be facing. Not all the infrastructure is aging, but there are some pieces of it that we're going to have to look at over time. And I think that has to be factored in the discussion.
Other comments, trustees? Key thing with the staff.
Sure. I'm sorry, just one. Brad, I just want to make sure that 10% covers all the social costs.
Yes, because we also charge if we do go out and turn the customers water off, we can charge $35 fees to go out and turn it.
Okay.
That coupled with the 10%
Okay. Okay.
The staff actually did quite a bit of work on this, which is why I wanted to recommend this to the public works committee. Some of these issues are more complicated and need more work done. So these items will be presented in our future straightforward. As you mentioned, the rate issue is going to be, at the end of the day, you're still going to have to cover all the costs. So it just depends what each change is going to cost us and how it's going to be divided up. But that's what we're doing. Fair enough? Good work on this. Yes, Rudy, and Jeremy.
There's still much, being short, president of the group, I think, the notice of the line.
Yes, there is.
So that's the,
Yes.
Okay, so we need action on that. piece of it then, consensus on that piece, it's not, the new ordinance. Okay, so, do we have consensus on the new piece? Go inside. Thank you. Okay, our next item now, the resolution for disposal of surplus equipment.
I got a request from Deputy Chief Bender on the second boat used by the Marine. That piece of equipment has been repaired a number of times. It's been crashed on it a number of times. It's not holding that repair overall. They don't use the boat any longer. They have to use the second unit for the arrangements to go in rental arrangements with any local boat providers on busy holidays or backup for our primary boat. They've asked for me to bring this forward for authorization to dispose of that piece of equipment. That's the typical process we would do for disposal of used vehicles or the main equipment that we're not using any longer. So we would be looking to bring that forward as an ordinance for you on the table.
Any comments?
You're not need a motion on this?
Just direction to bring it forward to the next meeting.
So there's no plan in the vision.
The plan is to rent.
Right.
And then Mayor, if I could just remind you our public comment protocol here under new business.
Yep, great. So thank you for that direction. Does anyone have any comments on items A through D for public? Yep.
In regards to the water,
Don't forget you got come to the stand, state your name, so forth.
Randy Ritchie, 100 South Maple.
So yeah, the items that were on there, that one was the transfer and the painting, the water, you mentioned
In
that.
regards to the water and fairness, and also like Ruby cited, hearing. None of the districts, but in the past, Public Works Department, the Water Department says that they don't do payment by law. They do. It actually costs us. That's important to all the people, their rights in regards to hearing, in regards to payment.
So to address your concern, I know that the actually people are on payment
Yes,
schedules, and
it should be disclosed that might be call marketing fundraising because the largest firm in the country. You got to disclose a lot less than that. In the past, when you called down a date, you still tell you don't payment.
so we're actually working to do quite a bit of different work on that. So that's why it's going to go to the Public Works Committee, which Trustee Arnold's not here. But so some of the things we've discussed in that are so other residents can be paid more, or other building customers, water customers can pay a little more if they want to donate to help out the fund for people who need it and so forth. So there's a lot of different things we're working on there.
Well, fairness and rights. The right.
Probably would be best that if somebody requests like any kind of, that they be told they don't do payment company. If they take that up, take those two and you can on it. Because to my knowledge, that's what payment company. And there's a lot of policy that has to go in there. Somebody has to be able to pay for you, and that's the reasonable cost. Hopefully, you're supposed to go to the local.
Years ago, that they don't accept fees. That's why I'm saying I don't know. I haven't had any problem this time. I've been told that before, and then I found out that basically that's by law we have to do that.
Others on these four items. Okay. We need for the disposal of the surplus equipment, then we just need consensus that is. Okay, so that'll be next week. Okay, great. Next, next we have mayor's report. So first, I'd just like to thank everyone that was involved with street dance. It went very well. I know the chamber did well, so thank you for your efforts there. It went very nicely. We had a lot of fun. Thank you to the Public Works for your efforts with the and in participation in the ALS ice bucket thing. It felt like it was a waterfall. The water just kept coming and coming and coming. Rather rather brisk. We're working on our strategic plan next week, so those are some of the key things and the strategies that we're focused on as a village. That's next week as a board, we're going to be working on that, so that's going to be productive. Hopefully good things to come from that. Also, in the coming weeks, we have the Illinois Municipal League meeting, so that's a statewide meeting in Chicago that covers a lot of different municipal issues. We'll be attending that. We had a lot of compliments for the police department these last several weeks, both for the Marine unit and also for the patrolmen for their and sergeants for their professionalism. So kudos there, Chief. And I also know we're losing Max, who's retired this weekend. So so are we going to do some for Max? Okay. His handler, of course, I know it's very close bond there. Okay. Committee reports. Trustee Knight has the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, just also like to echo your comments on the street dancing. Thanks to the chamber, the volunteers, and public works. It was very good. Have a huge crowd. It was a great evening. Police committee did meet. We stated earlier tonight. We had a couple of items on the agenda. And thank you, Chief. We had a member of the Marine unit there. We also had someone from the Coast Guard that gave some good information. Just for everyone's information, we got on citations on the lake. I know it's come up before. In the study that was provided, that in the last 3 to 4 years, they've averaged 3.5 citations per year. And this year, they have written over 30. So there's definitely an increase out there, whether it's traffic or just more enforcement, whatever. There's definitely a bigger presence out there. So we do appreciate that. We also talked about the police as came up, and simply reaching out to the HOAs regarding those. So hopefully we'll have some information for us next week. One of the other items we discussed is also to make it easier for people to understand the rules. We talked about possibly doing like a keychain, fob, or something, or a magnet on the dashboard. That would give some of the basic rules, the locations, the lake, the hours, no lake, things like that. So I think we're working on that. We can bring forward and make it a little bit easier for everybody in our specific area. Then the other topic of the night was blank license and admin, going through and cleaning up some items. We discussed a possible towing contract, the joint guard for the police department. We had 3 or 4 tow agencies here and many of their employees. It was an interesting discussion. What we have on the books right now is about 11 years old, so it's time to review, and I know we can give the chief some ideas to work on. He's looking into some items, getting more information for us. Obviously nothing decisive at this point, but we'll be getting more information and bringing that to the board within the next couple of months. Just a lot of information together. And I believe that's all I have right now.
Thank you. Trustee Gardini has the floor.
Thank you. Once again, I echo what was said about the street. You take for granted all the work that and the weather. There was a question asked earlier about the finance committee, and if it's okay, I'd like to make just a very, very brief clarification. This goes back, I understand, almost 5 years. And it was a conscious decision done with the previous administration, the finance director, and the current administration, we don't have finance, that when it comes to levy, when it comes to budget, that rather discussing it at a committee level than bringing it to the full board, that working with the village administrator and finance director, or interim finance director, finance committee issues would be brought up. That's kind of been practice for the last, like I said, 5 years. Now, as Doug mentioned earlier, he's looking at, and he's going to be making a report, the Friday report following trustee Steffen's question. We're looking at the possibility of consolidating. So how that all plays out, still remains to be seen. But as far as the finance committee goes, it's essentially, its work is done by the board here and committee of the whole for every review. One other thing, Doug, it's a finance issue. The state road salt purchase, what's the status on that? Have prices gone up, down, flatline, where are we?
Yeah, so the price is actually going to increase. We're working on, bring those costs more in line with what we'd like to see with the budget. So, as I said, the more work we've done on that, I'll have an update from the, something more definitive that the state takes and then,
How much road salt do we have?
currently there's about 500 tons.
How does that equate to, how many storms can that get with
Um,
bad storms?
Yeah. Well, if we had a similar method like we did last year, that won't matter.
For the benefit of the board, what caused that problem with the pricing is just that they had a contract where they could only take a certain percentage over. Well, it ended up, the suppliers ended up taking a bath on that contract because they were paying more than that 20% or 25% allowed for. And because of that, they took some losses because of the contract, so that's why they said they're not doing that contract this year. Now they're gonna make up for it, for what they lost the previous year. So it all washes out, it's a hedge, basically. And that's how it came about. But it's a commodity, and there's nobody gonna sell it for anything other than what they're offering it at now because of what happened is.
So, I'll have
Thanks, that's it.
Trustee Swig, thank you. Trustee Swig,
I guess Communications Committee met last week and we had a meeting. I'd like to welcome Elise Summel, who is our staff liaison, who is here tonight. She's going to be working on quite a few things, including she's starting to get quotes on Village Hall AV equipment, which we'll all be very happy about. Electronic community sign information, light pole banners for our town, and then also working on the website updates. So happy to report that all these things are in the works. The directional signs are up on Main Street as well as 59. The gateway signs have been ordered and we're awaiting the formal approval from ION. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes.
Okay. And then at the discussion at our committee level, we just want to add a word in the e-news about each committee activities regularly, maybe not every week, but just kind of on a regular ongoing basis. So we'll be sending those to all these so please send just updates as what your committee is working on to at least we can get that information out to the public. Another item we discussed was newsletters, State of the Village semi-annual or quarterly report by Doug, and we'll be discussing the other transportation. Chief Yost, is there anything to lend for that? I can speak for
Your,
okay, so you'll let us know. And then, I know I had this conversation with the administrator, but can you give the board an update on the finance director position that you are getting? I won't steal your thunder on that.
no, that's fine. Doug, HR USA is nothing that search in process. They just got the draft position prospectus put together after communicating with members of the finance committee and certain key members of staff. The deadline on submittals for that is September 30th. We've already got over a dozen, approaching 2 dozen responses to that. Can't vouch for any of the quality of those responses. Getting information. Again, that's closing on September 30th.
Very good. And then I just want to say that the internal Lake Michigan Water Group attended last week's Seal Chicago meeting, and each of the board members there have voted on draft agreement, emissions agreement to their respective boards, so it's just very here. And then finally, I will be out of town for the next week.
Thank you. Trustee Blackton.
just a couple of things. First and foremost, the street dance, thank you to the chamber, and all the volunteers, and all the people who helped make us it was a great night. Mother used to do we wanted to bring the whole day from starting the cardboard races, the ALS, what you want to call that bucket challenge. So whatever the waterfall challenge, but it was fun. It was a good night. We had a great day. Second of all, the mayor's awards that to be presented by all the nominees. There's a lot of very good nominees for good reason. We go full time, but also to congratulate the winners. Let everybody know as we did a shoe recycling contest. So because 22 schools in the spring, we'll be doing textile recycling in the fall. We decided for the week of homecoming, so starting Monday the 22nd, we'll be collecting textiles in all the schools like this 2018, and we'll be doing the same thing, running the contest, and we'll be worked out by the parents and children on child. On Swallow, we had a meeting. Finally, we did the whole summer off. The Swallow meeting last Thursday, and we're normally Swallow is pretty much set up to help residents and everything. They have some programs that have been running, but there'll be some changes coming up, and they're going to be pushing the business, commercial, electronic recycling. They'll be able to visit to the school districts, things like that. They're going to try to make it easier for them to work with Swallow to distribute their electronics. As of right now, the electronic collection sites for that is for residents only. This is an effort to reach out to help the businesses that the same opportunities as residents. And lastly, I've never heard of this before. There's tire recycling. From municipalities, school districts, things like that. Swallow is going to have free tire recycling for that. I'll see that information later. But on Friday, October 31st, all units of government will be able to have their tires picked up. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to move to the executive session in order to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of this public body or anything that will take involvement in the executive session.
Second.
Roll call.
Yes.
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 Chairman, you move to closed session.
Yeah, I was watching her. Oh, yeah, I don't think I didn't see that.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you dial in and leave your comments on how you feel the mayor and the trustees are handling our questions and the meetings and the business. Thanks.
Yeah, I know, yeah.